We got to $1 million of revenue in like 12 months, which when you have no working capital, no funding, you've got no network in the industry. Like we started bare bones. Is really miraculous, and we would never have done it without the virality that we had. Miraculous outcomes require a miraculous amount of work. You don't get to achieve these fantastic things in short periods of time unless you put in like an outsized amount of effort. And effort almost anywhere sucks. If you're not looking back in a year and feeling embarrassed of where you were, then you've done something wrong.
Hello and welcome to Unfulfilled, the podcast that delves into journeys of people shaping the e-commerce landscape. I'm your host, Luke from Fulfilled Talent. In this podcast, we'll talk to people making waves in the e-commerce sector, those who have taken the chance and have made it. We're not just interested in success, we're keen to understand the hardships, the risks, and the real life experiences behind these brands and businesses. We'll hear stories of growth, culture, and the real struggles people have faced along the way. The aim is to get an honest look at the journey of building something worthwhile in the e-commerce world. So, if you're intrigued by what really goes into building a high-growth e-commerce brand and business, please stick around. We're always unfulfilled, and we're just getting started.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Unfulfilled, the e-commerce podcast. I'm going to introduce my guest today, although if you don't know who he is, I'm not sure really where you've been for the last 18 months. But today I'm joined by Hamish, who is one of the co-founders of Order Editing. Hamish and I spoke initially, probably about 18 months ago, about coming on this exact podcast, and we never got around to it, which I'm sure we'll get into today as to the why. But yeah, I'm really excited about having you on board on the podcast. So thank you for joining us. However, I guess for people who don't know maybe who you are somehow, or know who Order Editing is within the e-com space, like tell us a bit more about yourself and the app as well, please.
The flattery. Yeah, I'm the 23-year-old co-founder of a Shopify app called orderediting.com. We a few years ago discovered that customers on almost every single online store's checkout aren't able to make changes to their order post purchase, and that has a world of problems and poor customer experiences that knock on from that. And myself and a co-founder based in Toronto decided to solve that problem. And we launched a little over a year ago, about 18 months ago, and we now have about 600 major retailers on the app, including the likes of like your Represents, your Opolis, your Adanolas in the UK.
Yeah, some of the best ideas are the easiest ones, right? Or the most simple ones. But what was it that, like, how did you and Kira come together? How did the idea happen?
Yeah, so I was studying in New Zealand. I was finishing up a university degree, and I took a summer internship working for a fashion brand, or a collective of fashion brands rather. This company called Revolt was designing and manufacturing and running the e-commerce campaigns for famous YouTubers. And so we'd set up stores for them and would have like 15 or 16 YouTubers on our roster. And like Mr. Beast was one of our clients to do a name drop. And I got into that internship, and there was immediately like a gap to fill in customer service. So I took on a leadership role there and started hiring a team and like solving their support tickets. And as you can imagine, when you're like a 20-year-old kid and you get an opportunity like that, like you just throw yourself at it. And I started researching, and I just got really geeky about what could we do to make this better. And I was also trying to figure out how to be a manager. And so I was doing these one-to-ones with the support agents we had in the Philippines, like coaching them and figuring out, what their days are like and whatnot and how we can improve it. And one of the questions I remember asking them one week, and I asked everyone this, was just like, what do you spend the most time doing? And it was like 9 out of 10 of these agents reported back that they spent the most amount of their day changing sizes or addresses or canceling orders after checkout for customers on behalf. And I just had a light bulb moment. I was just like, that doesn't make sense. I'd edited orders myself in Shopify, and I was like, there's no reason why you couldn't just give this functionality to the consumer, and then they wouldn't have to contact us. Like, for just reduce friction on both ends. Um, I had like some people that worked at that company were quite active on the internet, and so is my now co-founder, and they just happened to follow each other. And when I raised the idea internally, they're like, "Oh, I think I know a guy in Canada He builds Shopify apps. I used to follow him for his design work. I'll introduce you. And that's how I met Kara, just over like a Twitter DM.
Wow.
And he had a history of it. He heard the problem space, and I told him that we got 3,000 of these emails every single month, and he immediately thought that's a really interesting thing to solve, and he decided to build it for us. Um, and then the rest is kind of history. We used it ourselves for a year. We didn't have it as an app on the App Store. It wasn't a business. It was just for me. Like this was
Mhm.
my thing to solve my problem. And then at the end of the year, I realized that I was being quite naive, and actually, if I have this problem, so might other people. And so we decided to join forces and actually build a business.
Wow. It's incredible. I was talking to my wife about this today. We went up for a dog walk, and I was like, "Who's on your podcast this afternoon?" It was like, Hamish, water editing, this what it does. And she was like, how was that not a thing
20
before?
years ago.
Yeah, like how was that not a thing? And I was like, I don't know, but and then like I reeled off some of your clients like just from memory, and she was like, geez, that's going to be like a real interesting like pod just to get like deep dive into just the how is always the really interesting bit, and then the second part of that is the scale, right? Because
Mm.
you're doing this. I think there's a big thing you talk about, right? Is doing it in public, um, and owning all the highs and the lows. So how have you been able to like do that, and what was sort of the reasoning behind sort of doing that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work for a really intelligent founder. That was like my career history, is working at startups because I wanted to start a business. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go work under founders who I admire. And the founder that I worked for right before I started this business or went like public and quit my job, he gave me a document called his strategy document. And he gave this to all of the employees, and it was effectively 4 years of history of the business from the day that it started to today. And it was all about how he thought the business would scale over time and what they were going to prioritize in each of those different like chapters of your journey, like the very start, and then when you start to get a little bit bigger and things like that. Because you can only focus and do so much. And I read this, and it was just super impactful for me. And so when I started my company, and I saw how it like really had value for his business, both right from the start and also even to this day, as they're like a larger business. And so I wrote my own strategy book, and I effectively wrote this like it's like a 40-page document now, where I initially diagnosed like what our app does, where it fits within the market, who the customers are or who we're going to be selling to, and where we have really strong fit. And then I thought about the characteristics of those customers, and I honestly like my read on e-commerce was that it's a pretty young industry, and that the majority of the people that work on it brand side are like in their 20s to 30s. Like they're not enterprise, they're not relatively older, they're on social media, they're internet kids, they grew up on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know how to get eyeballs from people that grew up on the internet. I post on the internet. And I know that people love following influencers, and people like following stories, and people like rallying behind um, like these types of people that are putting themselves out there. Because I think every single person in their 20s right now is envious of the influencers, because they're like, I wish I had the courage to post online, because they can see what it does for their life. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna have the courage to do that, and that'll be my distribution channel. And so from the very start, even before this business, I was posting on LinkedIn and building my personal brand and presenting as a young person who wanted to achieve big things and just wasn't there yet. But I will be there someday, and like you should follow that story. And it worked. It worked perfectly. Like we grew insanely fast. Like we got to $1 million of revenue in like 12 months, which when you have no working capital, no funding, you've got no network in the industry. Like we started bare bones, is really miraculous, and we would never have done it without the virality that we had by building on public on platforms like LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said, like when we first spoke about this, I remember, I remember you sharing your calendar, I think maybe on our first
Yeah.
conversation. And it was similar to the other Mr. Ecom in my vein, which is Nathan Lomax, obviously from Quickfire.
Mm.
His diary was the most chaotic I've ever seen before seeing yours, I think. And that's because you had what 30-minute conversations for nearly like 14 hours a day for, well, how long? You tell me, how long was that for?
Yeah, I think the worst month that I ever had, I had 140 hours of meetings. Which if you average it out, it's like five hours of meetings per day. I remember there being one Monday when I was in London and I woke up at 7 a.m. and I finished at 11 and I took 14 meetings that day, 14 30-minute meetings.
It's
Um,
crazy.
like when do you eat? Like when do you go to the bathroom? When do you get a shower and brush your teeth? Like it was brutal. It was like my own little prison cell.
Yeah. And
But
everyone thinks
at
it's,
least I was getting paid for it.
yeah, that's true. But everyone thinks it's like glitz and glamour, right? But actually, it's the graft that you put in to get. I know, like you're nowhere near finished. I think that's also like quite. It'd be quite interesting to do like a year on podcast from like now to like understand what's changed in that year as well for you. But it's not all glitz and glamour, is it? As people probably think. Like people probably think meet you and probably think, oh, this guy's living an unbelievable life, which maybe you are, but the graft that goes into giving you the flexibility, I guess, to do the stuff you love doing is comes with the work, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I one of the things that I said very often when I was speaking to university students last year was like miraculous outcomes require a miraculous amount of work. Like you don't get to achieve these fantastic things in short periods of time unless you put in like an outsized amount of effort. And effort almost anywhere sucks. Like putting in effort into your marriage and your relationships is freaking hard.
Yep.
Putting outsized amount of effort into your work is also hard. Like it takes time and energy and brain power. And all of that brain power and energy that you put forth towards your work ultimately has to be taken away from somewhere else. So I think that the hardest thing for me in the last 18 months has just been the fact that I've effectively put so much effort into building my business that I've entirely isolated a lot of like the beauties of human nature, of like being able to connect with people and have like strong relationships and go out and relax and all of these things, like generally like pleasurable activities. I just don't have energy for them anymore, to an extent. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why. Um, there's a lot of downside that has come with the glitz that I probably haven't really realized yet.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a trade-off, and it's a trade-off that I take every single day intentionally and enjoy taking. Like I don't regret anything.
Good. Probably to be quite nicely to my next question, which is what's your what's been like a couple of the biggest challenges that you've faced like today that you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, most of them are personal, to be honest. Um, we had a challenge, like company related. We had a challenge very early on in our journey. I think 3 months in or 4 months in, we challenged like 18% of our revenue in 1 month because the product just stopped working. Like it just bugged out, and that was a really hard moment because one, like you work so hard to acquire these deals, um, and then the product ultimately like eradicates that, removes it, and the blame like all lands on my co-founder's shoulder for that because he's building the product, um, and it was just a real reminder of just like one, like we're all humans that are just a work in progress, and that's going to happen to me, and it has happened to me many a time, like these royal mistakes.
Yeah.
um, and two, like your business is as fit, like is always fickle to an extent. Like it's only as strong, like especially in software, it's only as strong as your software is. And if like, you know, terrible analogy, but like if the power goes out, you're screwed. Like you're messing up at this point $5 billion of Shopify GMV. Like you're having a series. If we go down on Black Friday, um, and even just for one merchant, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you put that across our client book, you're talking about near potentially 100 million or more. Um, so you better make
Yeah.
sure you do a damn good job. Um, and then on a personal level, I mean, it's always a challenge, for just like the time this requires. As much as you accept the trade-off and as much as you enjoy it, you have highs and lows, and your energy is not super consistent. Um, and I think I'm probably best described as vulnerable. Like I think if you're on such a leading edge of like investment into work and away from all of these other nice things in your life that keep you balanced and happy and healthy, one little thing can really flip you over, or one really thing can like just ruin your whole day or your week. Um, and I'm just continually trying to work on my mental strength or my mental so that my energy is more consistent and that I can show up here every single day and not burn out and things like that. And I definitely struggled with that last year. But I'm a lot better and a lot more fortunate that I got a team around me this year, which helps.
Yeah. Yeah, you built a really solid team. Again, moving on to that, like what I think I mentioned this in a different podcast recently is I think the businesses who build in public, like you have, and like the guys at Back London have done, for example, as well, is it also allows you to find, or even great talent to find you, doesn't it as well? And
Yeah.
again, you can talk about your team, what you've grown there, but I know you've managed to get some of the A-listers, let's say, involved, whether that's direct employed or invested, obviously as well. So talk about that. Like, how have you been able to make sure you find the right people?
Yeah, I mean we've got eight on our team now, and I just sent out an offer for number nine. And it continues to amaze me the quality of talent that we're able to attract as a extremely, I mean, I don't think this way, but from the outside looking in, like from an employee perspective, an extremely unstable and early stage company. Um, like there's risks associated with our business, and we still manage to acquire or attract like the very top talent, whether it's from the UK or Australia, and we're starting to see a bit of hiring traction in the US, like at the caliber that we'd love, which is remarkable. Um, and absolutely, I mean, it's probably the hardest, it's the most important part about building a company, and it's consequently also the hardest part. um, your team are everything, like because at some point it's going to be more than you as the founder, and you need a team that can get as close or match your output or do even better than you in a perfect world. And it's really hard to get A-list people or A players to leave their probably very well paying jobs, they're probably very stable jobs, the jobs they're probably extremely good at, to come and join your risky, unheard of, irrelevant startup, because that's what you are. Like if you launch a business, you're literally irrelevant. Like unless you're able to go out and raise a lot of capital
Yeah.
from remarkable investors, then you get a boost up and credibility, right? And you can attract that talent a bit easier. Or you've got a previous history or whatever it might be. And I guess our way of building that credibility and making sure that we weren't irrelevant and that people, one, knew of us and then two, wanted to work for us, was building in public. It wasn't something that I put in the strategy book. I had no idea this would happen. I didn't even think about it. That's how like young and new to this I am.
Mhm.
But looking in retrospect, it was absolutely obvious that if I
Yeah.
posted on LinkedIn, if I build an audience, we would be able to get better talent, and that would be good for my business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a remarkable thing.
And I think the other side as well is you are very consistent with your content, both from a order editing point of view. Like, I'm not sure how many scheduled posts you've got in terms of new clients coming on board, but there seems to be a daily update of, okay, this new brand has come aboard, this new brand, this, huge business has now decided to partner as well. I think that consistency, again, for any business across any spectrum of work is hugely important as well, to be consistent in what you put out in the market as well.
Yeah, there's one thing that I think, one that like that I love when people compliment me on, and two that I'm going to feel extremely proud of. I mean, I feel extremely proud of today, but I'll feel even more proud of in a year's time and in the years after that, is just how I've shown up and how consistently I have shown up. I've been genuinely like working my ass off to be in this position consistently since I was a 20-year-old and I decided I wanted to run a business. Like
Yeah.
it's been nearly 4 years of every single day reading. Like I'm still churning through a book every single week to get smarter. I'm still going to therapy to be a better human being. I posted on LinkedIn every single day pretty much to build my audience and my credibility and like my future career. Um, and I work every single day, extremely long hours, and it's working. And it's like it's a boulder. Like, people talk about momentum in their lives. Um, I've been fortunate. I've been pushing this thing for so long that it's just second nature to do these things now.
Yeah.
Um, And I'm really glad that when I was so young, I I made sure that I stacked these habits to ultimately like put myself in this position here.
Yeah.
I didn't do it all at once. I started with one thing, did it for 60 days, it became habitual, and then I layered on another good trait, and I just continued like that process. Um, and with the dream of like, when I'm 30 or even when I'm 40, just like I don't know, if I continue doing this for 10 years, like I just can't wait to see the type of person that I am at that point. Like it's amazing to think about how much you could like really grow as a person if you keep working like this.
Yeah. Love it, mate. Why do you love what you do? Like, what is it that like gets you doing this every day? Is it the when a brand sees like the light bulb goes off for them? Like, what is it for you that you love what you do?
I mean, it's changed over time. Like I loved the first year of this business because it was all about just like figuring out what we're capable of and just like teasing with goals and just seeing what we could do. And it was really enjoyable starting something from scratch, having absolutely no expectation, and then growing it into something meaningful where people, um, you know, they underestimate you and you kind of prove them wrong. And you prove to yourself like you can build something from scratch. You can do this thing. You spend so much time like people like my generation and generations to come. You spend so much time on the internet looking at um, founders or wealthy people or successful people or professional athletes because they're just like right in front of you. They're so available. It's crazy, and you spend so much time feeling mildly insecure that you're not going to live up to those types of people or that you're not capable. Like they're aliens, like they're blessed. And I think it was so pleasurable deciding that I was going to prove that I could be that person and then like actually proving to myself that I was. These days, I get a lot of pride out of just like solving the problem. I jump on my whole day at the moment outside of all of the like the 80% of my work that I just like have to do, my administration. That 20% where it's like me time, I literally Google brand name, edit my order. And if their like frequently asked questions or their customer service policy says, sorry, we can't change orders after purchase, like return it or contact the courier, I message them immediately. And it's like my whole life is how many of those policies can I flip? I get so much joy. I jump on call for a demo after outreaching them and I go like, look, I reached out to you because I saw this policy and this is like the bane of my existence. Like I know how bad this is. I just want to change it for you. And I get a lot of joy out of that. Um, it fluctuates, some days, some weeks I get a lot of pleasure out of like seeing someone on my team grow or seeing someone on my team kick a massive goal. Um, and it just depends on the weather, but some things remain very consistent and changing those policies is always very consistent.
Yeah. Amazing. And then from a audit editing point of view, like what has changed in terms of like, so I remember obviously the first conversation was this like, post purchase, you can change your address and add something else to it, whatever it is. But I saw one of your posts today, which is a little like 2 minute video that you've done, which is around with Klaviyo, within half an hour of your order, you can do like, so I guess like, talk to like that evolving, like, because I mean, the best businesses always have to evolve, obviously, right? So that was like, again, it's a great idea. And the fact you're making templates for brands, like even that, again, like just breaks down that barrier of I can't
Mm.
do that stuff. And we're like, well, I've already done this for you, basically. You're like a bit of a Blue Peter sort of type. Here's what I've done beforehand. Like, okay, so like talk me through that, like in the features of what the like next sort of like rollout's going to look like, all the sort of like crazy stuff you and Gira are looking at.
Yeah, I mean, when we started this business, it was entirely around customer experience and solving the problem that I had. It was like all about solving tickets. And I that's the part of the business that I love. I shouldn't probably say this, but I have very little care for making merchants more money. I freaking love just solving this order editing problem. I just think it's so important.
Hmm.
But merchants care more about making more money. So, like we've built for that, and we've learned that over time. But we went out to market with this very like, let's save you time and money approach. Let's solve this problem, and it kind of fell on dead ears. Like for really big brands, there was some awareness, but it was kind of not that interesting or not that
Hmm.
viral. And then I remember one day, my co-founder built a feature where it would send an email to a customer post-purchase and let them know that there's space in their package for another item, and that they could get a discount if they added more products. And that went super viral, and we got our first customer because we posted that. Like I'd
Wow.
made no revenue at all on order editing, and then mentioned upsells, post-purchase upsells, and suddenly like the lead flow was crazy. And I was like, okay, our positioning was wrong the whole time. Like this is the business model. And so we've leaned more aggressively into that, both from a communication standpoint, but also from a product development standpoint. And we've just continually iterated on the UX, the UI, the speed, the merchandising strategies that you're able to set up within the app. Like it used to just, you didn't have any functionality to, if they bought X, recommend them Y. And now we have those types of things and much more. How many orders have they placed, etc. And we're now building, we're about to release really like a couple of days away from releasing just a big update there where we're no longer just post purchase. We're also going to be within the checkout. We're going to be within the shipping modal. And if a customer's not on free shipping yet, we're going to offer them an upsell to get them to free shipping, like right where they're looking at the cost of shipping.
Hmm.
We're doing one click upsells where they don't have to enter in their payment information at all post purchase. And um, we're just continually to focus on make our app how can we make our app's ROI so strong on the revenue comparison to cost as opposed to needing to lean on time savings or even have to like think about time savings? Because the reality is what happens is a brand puts order editing live, and I'll use Opoly as an example. They had 1,300 tickets last April
Yeah.
for order edits. This April they had like 35, which is like 96% reduction. But the thing is for them, they've had that 96% reduction for the last year. So every day when they show up to work and the customer service team log in, they kind of forget our app exists because it's just working in the background.
Yeah.
Um, and you almost forget that if you turned this off, you would get 1,300 emails the very next month, right?
Yeah.
Like if you turn us off, the faucet just starts pouring again. And so we need to make sure that we like consistently remain front of mind and valuable so that we have really great relationships and the upsells do that.
Yeah.
What's coming thereafter? I mean, it's funny. I start to change my tone on this as I speak because we want to build address validation, like world class address
Hmm.
validation. We see a really neat way to disrupt that industry. But at the same time, like, why would we when we could build more things to make merchants more money? Because clearly that's what they care about.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm kind of dilly-dallying with that a little bit at the moment,
Okay.
where I'm like, should we be doing more on the cost saving front when we have so much evidence and data that merchants just want to do upsells? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
uh,
funny, isn't it? Because it's always that why, isn't it? Like your why you start a business is sometimes different to why a customer would then purchase your product, and that's exactly what we're talking about, isn't it? It's you hear
yeah.
so many brands who think a founder would say, "Oh, my customer wants to hear about X, whatever that is, right?"
Mm.
And then they start pushing that as their narrative, and then they get like, nothing from it or little engagement from it, whatever it is, and then they flick the coin to asking their top 10 customers, like, what do you want from us? And it's, I want to understand more about this and that. And the founder
Mm.
like, well, absolutely fine. Let's now then change the tone to that. And then those little questions you then ask your customers make a huge uplift for future. It's the same thing with any good business, right? It's actually understanding your audience better.
Completely. It's super painful too. Like it wasn't painful to change the copy and like say a different message or build a slightly different product. That's fine.
Mm.
The hardest part is you just don't like I just care relatively less. Like
Okay.
I don't want to do a demo where the merchant's asking me how do I make the most amount of money from this. I want to do a
Okay.
demo where they're asking that, but they're also like, how do I maximize the customer's experience of this? Because our customers are going to love it. Like my my pride at the end of the day Like when I sit down and uh, someone goes like, "What was your favorite part about building auto editing in 5 years after we've probably been acquired or something like that?" I won't say I made merchants a collective
Yeah.
$300 million of revenue. I'll say every single online checkout now gives like empowers customers to edit their auto self-service. And that
Yeah.
like we started that. And we wouldn't have we like it won't be our app on every single checkout, obviously. But what I hope is that in 2 years you'll see Apple offer this. And they'll build it themselves. But they would have someone from their team would have bought from one of our stores and thought that's a good idea and then put it onto the Apple store. And that'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah, that's fair. It goes back to that consistency element, right? Because when you post your graphics of X amount more revenue the last 30 days, you also always shout about customer tickets, don't you? I guess that goes back to that same thing is, yes, of course, it's great to talk about how you've improved average order value or revenue, but for you, it's still
Mm.
that same excitement of I've actually saved these customers this much time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, who are you building your business for? Or like, where do you have the where do you have the most impact on it? Like, where do I have the most impact on a humanity level? Is it for 1,000 Shopify brands and saving them time, or is it for 100 million customers who don't have to contact customer service, or who
Yeah.
don't have to return or don't have to return a package because they couldn't get it canceled in time, or who get their package delivered to the right address? Like that's the real source of impact, right? It's 100 times more. It's far greater.
Yeah, yeah. No, agreed. And in terms of things like decisions that you've made across the time, like, is there
Mm.
one apart from maybe like the narrative changing on your why, but is there one thing you can think of that you look back and you're like that was the moment, or that's something that you sit back and think, God, if we didn't do that, then where maybe would we have been?
Yeah. I mean, the three fundamental parts of our business's strategy, like the three things that I focused on, and the first year was the most important for us, right? We're barely out of it. Was to build in public, and
Yeah,
that was brilliant. I don't think we could have grown our business in any faster way had we not done that. And it's also brilliant because when this is all said and done, it's gonna be really easy for me to start another company, and I care about that. Like I've built the Hamish business at the same time as the auto editing business, and I think a lot of founders forget to do that.
yeah,
Two was we focused on the largest fashion brands in the world, and the world was very specific. We weren't going to grow in Australia, my hometown, and then expand later. We were going to be global from day one, and I'm so glad we did that because it just added this sense of allure and mystery and FOMO to our product. Where they're like, how are these kids 6 months in and they're already working with Opoly and Represent and they live in Australia? Like, how did that happen?
yeah,
Um, and it had this amazing effect where, the Australian brands were looking up to the UK brands and more people adopted it because they did. Going after fashion specifically was genius because I reckon like 10% of our business has come from Luke from Baby, like the ecom manager at this brand, checking out Opoly's store or Represent store, seeing our app,
yeah,
thinking, oh, that's smart, and then Googling us. So going after these like high volume brands where effectively our customers were also shopping from, uh, only increased our business, and that was really, really smart if I do say so myself. Um, yeah, those two things specifically were really wise decisions, as
yeah.
opposed to, I think, some more traditional strategies, which are like, we're going to build a really strong partner ecosystem. But the reality is, it's really hard to partner with people in your first year because one, you're irrelevant, and two, I can't trust you.
Hmm.
Like it's really hard to get partners to work with you and care about you and refer you and do co-marketing
Yeah,
if you're like the little guy, if you don't have anything for them. Whereas now we come to partners and it's like, hey, like we're a legitimate business.
yeah.
We've got a great reputation. Let's do
No.
something together.
And mate, and again, like talking about when you post your oh Polly's now join us, you talk about your partners, don't you? Like High Cohesion are on there. Um,
Yeah,
I can't think all the top of my head now, but High Cohesion pops in my head because I remember seeing that earlier on
the
today.
last one, yeah.
Obviously, Gorgeous, I guess, are on there. You've got Clavier,
Yopo,
obviously.
Klaviyo, yeah. All the
Yeah, just
3PLs.
It's
Um,
great. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. Does make. What's your? Is there a moment like you mentioned there, like when Opali joined you and represented or whatever? But is
yeah.
there like the or does this change? I think I ask this question to every guest as well. Is like the pinch me moment. Like
Uh,
what's been either the most recent or what's been the most memorable or both?
there's no doubt in my mind that the happiest or like the most excited I've ever been was when we got our first customer.
Yeah.
100%. Like I've never jumped off. Oh, I have actually. I've done that a few times, but I jumped off my chair and I screamed. Like
Yeah.
my flatmates were like, "Holy shit, what happened?" And I was like, "We signed the Udi, and it was like a big contract, and that was amazing. Like we made our first dollar,
Yeah.
you know, and it was like a good brand. Um, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. Seeing my co-founder for the first time, like we'd built this business together for 2 years, or like he built the app for me like in 2022, I think. Yeah, January 2022, he built the app, and I only met him when we were like doing $500,000 a year, and it was like July, and we were and like that was amazing. He came to San Francisco. We met out. We went out for dinner. We had a whole week together, like working together, and it was everything I could have ever asked for and more. Those are real highlights for me.
Yeah.
Um, the most recent, and then like the big client launches, I'd say, have been fantastic moments for our business's growth. But on a personal level, like I got more excited when Represent booked the demo inbound than I did when we signed them as a customer. Because I kind of like at that point we knew it was going to happen, but it was just like so cool. Like this brand that I've been wearing and my like literally my favorite fashion brand of the
Yeah.
last 4 years, like found my website and booked a call with me and they want to meet me. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah. Who in the like, again, this is something that I love asking because I think it brings out different people. But in terms of like your partners, you already mentioned a few a moment ago, but are there like one or two of your ecom either partners or advisors, whatever you want to call them, who you like couldn't have lived without, or like is there someone like you who people you think of in that sort of vein of when you do Hamish version 2, like who's going to be there with you, I guess.
Yeah, I mean there's lots of different people, right? Like from a mentorship perspective, there's a guy called Adam Clark in New Zealand who has had a couple really successful exits, and he voluntarily gave me a lot of time, particularly in the early days of our business, and that was very transformational. Um, Within the e-com industry itself, like Ollie Rhodes, to be honest,
Okay.
Ollie was one of the first people that I ever met when I started this business, and I met him for advice, and his energy was just off the charts. And then for the rest of this business, he's supported, advocated, talked about us. He was posting about us on LinkedIn before we had any customers. And he really helped get us off the ground. Like we were nobodies in the UK until Ollie started talking about us on LinkedIn and posting and commenting. And the amount of people that would say, "Oh, I heard about you through him," was amazing. And he ultimately got us our first customers, which that's the hardest part. Once you have one, you get momentum, but getting the first is really hard. And he's now an investor in the business. It was an absolute pleasure to like offer him a spot as an angel investor and bring him on. Um, yeah, he was very impactful. They're probably the big ones. I mean, in New Zealand or in Australia, like my hometown, Ryan Delaney, the founder of Overdose Digital, like just a phenomenal advocate, shoulder, supporter, mentor in the trenches with me. Yeah, there's a few people that stand out. Dave works for me,
Yeah.
but Dave also transformed our business. I mean, Dave Wiltshire is the founder of Patchworks and the founder of Juno, an e-commerce agency, and he left both of those businesses and was fishing for 6 months. And I'll never forget him emailing me saying, "Oh, I've been doing like fishing for 6 months, and I want to get back and work, and I just can't stop thinking about your app, and I'd love to work together part time." And I was like, "That doesn't make any sense. Like you're a extremely successful founder with an amazing network. Like why would you want to work for me?" He said, "I just believe in what you're doing, and I like your energy." And we've had the most amazing 12 months together. growing this business and going to war. And he was the first person that we ever hired. So yeah, he stands out as well.
It's not a bad first hire.
Pretty damn good first hire. Yeah, he brought us a lot of credibility. Like, how'd you get Dave? Like, why is he doing this? And it's an amazing story. Like, he's literally just doing this. Not we don't pay him good money at all. He's just doing this because he's just doing this because he cares.
Yeah.
Like, he's just doing this because he cares.
No, it's some of the best people, isn't it, who do that as well. Like I think about, I think we're a similar, not age, as in date of birth age, but similar age as a business because we set up about 2 years ago in June,
Mm,
and we've still got a long way to go to get to where we want to be. But there's no way we would have got to where we are now without like some amazing people around sort of us as well. And I think
mm,
it's interesting you talk about like partner networks as well. Like hindsight again is 2020, and that's I love hindsight for certain things, but I really dislike it for a lot of other reasons. Um, but like we've our main focus was around partners. That was our sort of
mm,
idea is let's do it on partnerships. And I think in it's different, I guess, in recruitment. There's so many agencies out there, some incredible ones, but there's a host that are who tarnish, let's say, the rest. So we were really keen to make sure we focus on partnerships and building relationships to then get the intros off the back of their relationships.
mm,
And for us, I don't think we've got that right straight away, but I think we are right now, and that's sort of where we've been able to get in front of some like, unbelievable brands that we're now working
mm,
alongside. And I think it's very interesting to hearing you say partnerships wasn't your focus. Your focus was all this other side. Whereas
mm,
our key focus was that. Like, I know they're two very different businesses, but it's still selling 101, right? It's still you're selling the person you're selling to. It's still just another human that you've got to get to know on a level for them to trust you. And that is the most difficult thing to do, I think, in any business, especially in the startup world.
mm.
It's who do you trust?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's
To
scary,
be,
man. When
well,
you
I mean,
think
we're
about it.
we're we're focusing on it now, you know,
Yeah, yeah, mate.
because it's a key part of how the industry operates. Hey,
Of course it is, yeah. Because I think, you talked about Ollie there, right? In terms of an agency sort
yeah,
of partner in a way. If you then go out there and build other agency partnerships, it's only going to keep growing your opportunities to save your customers or their customers time, not make much
mm,
more money. It's saving the customers time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, reflection's nice at that point. What does like what does the next, I don't know, 12 months look like for audio editing? What's the sort of the plan from, I'm not asking you to show your business plan obviously at this point, but what does the next 12 months look like for you, whether that's, growth, whether that's headcount, whether that's amount of customers, like what's the key metrics you're sort of looking at as a business?
Yeah, I mean, we're about to like more aggressively invest in the partnerships. That was the offer that's gone out, like a head of partnerships globally. Um, that's
Wow.
super exciting. That's super exciting. We'll evolve into a more partner-led business, like probably a more traditional software company, and it will free me up to hopefully. My dream is that the partnerships manager and me go to war on who can generate the most revenue. Me through like unconventional virality, and her or him through 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 like traditional and through partner mechanisms. And I'm excited to see that competitiveness play through. I'm super focused on growing an extremely profitable business at this point. Like, I really feel the stress of having lots of heads, and I really feel the need, like, that it becomes unnecessary up to a certain point. So I have a lot of conviction that we'll be finishing this year doing somewhere between 2.5 and $3 million a year. But we'll be doing about $1 million profit. That's like the dream, is that we have, 8 or 9 people running this thing, and we keep OpEx low, and we just have a good vehicle. We'll see how we go on that. Again, this is my first time running a business, so it may be entirely impossible, but that's what I'm personally striving for. Like, that's the business that I want to run.
Yeah.
Um, and then we're going to continue investing into product, and just keep building an app for our merchants that saves them more time, makes them more money, and it's just a flawless experience. Um, and I'm excited to see, like, I'm excited to in 12 months look back and be embarrassed of what we have now, and feel proud of what we have then, and just keep repeating that, right? Like if you're not looking back in a year and feeling embarrassed of where you were, then you've done something wrong. So that's ultimately the goal. How can we embarrass ourselves?
Yeah, mate. Amazing. And yeah, I think you, well, again, going back to, I wish 18 months ago, um, I had been more proactive booking you onto the podcast in season one. Because I wish I could have looked back to that podcast versus like today's podcast, but then have, you on season three in a year's time to talk about, because I think that would have been a really cool like timeline, almost like as
Mm,
a rubber stamp of like, this is what, and I remember it. I remember our first conversation. I remember what you were talking about and all these sort of dreams you had. And yeah, mate, it's mega. I almost feel like I know you like a mate, even though like we've
yeah,
only spoken a handful of times, because of what you've done. And that's testament to you, your character, and what you're doing, mate. So long may it continue. And yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us. And
blessed.
yeah, mate, it's been quality. And yeah, I mean, it's long may it continue your growth. And I look forward to hearing the news when your new global head of partnerships joins the business.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Luke. It was really fun.
No, my pleasure, mate. Thank
We
you.
got it. We got it done.
We got it done. All right, man. See you soon.
So yeah.